the first panel discussion, regional frameworks, what to expect, what are the most important changes in the new regional frameworks, and what to expect from this decade. Rhona, the floor again travels to you in this case. I will be supporting you again digitally, but I know that before announcing all of the speakers and panelists in this discussion, you have a very important pool question to ask. Is that correct?
Eek. Remind me. Sorry. No, I just go ahead, Edwards, with what you were wanting to say. Sorry.
So we still have the previous poll question about the get-together in the evening, which is of course important as well, as you know. But very soon, dear participants and online visitors, you will see another poll question appearing right here. But then in this moment, Rhona, I'll allow you to introduce the amazing speakers that you have for this panel discussion, both online and live here on the stage in Riga.
Thank you. Yes, I think you have Ingela with you. Is that right? Who's going to be on the stage shortly?
I know that Liene will be joining or switching me on this stage very shortly. So I will give my podium to Liene Gaujeniete, who will be joining live here in Riga. But I know that a few participants are joining us online as well.
Indeed. Sorry, my apologies for that. Right. So this next session then, debate, panel discussion that we have here with 4 very erudite speakers representing a number of different agencies and organisations, and I'm not going to steal their thunder this time round, but I am going to ask that they will have about 5 minutes to begin with. A very quick question to everybody first of all, and then we'll come back and actually create a little bit of discussion within the group. So, Liene, can I ask you to take over and introduce yourself first of all, please? And your question, which will be, why should we have maritime spatial planning as an action within the European Union's Baltic Sea region policy area for spatial planning? What is the added value?
Okay. Thank you, Rhona. Good afternoon or good evening. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And so thank you for the question, Rhona. And I have to give a short insight now on what this EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region is. And as many of you already know, it's one of the 4 macro-regional strategies in the European Union. And recently a new action plan for it was approved, which means that we will experience some slight changes in the upcoming decade. And the strategy is implemented in 14 fields, or the so-called policy areas. And spatial planning is one of those policy areas. And why it is important? Because it does not only offers a regional framework, but it is also a very important cooperation platform we can enhance in our work. And therefore I will mention a few of the reasons to be part of it. And first, it is important to mention that the strategy is a framework that gathers stakeholders from all geographical scales. And that allows us to address the regional and local stakeholders more efficiently, as they are not on the involved in the usual work of VASAB and HELCOM. Secondly, very importantly, the cooperation with stakeholders from other sectors is possible. And as part of the strategy, we cooperate with the stakeholders in sectors which are crucial to be involved in the spatial planning. For example, our closest allies are policy areas transport and energy, and especially the latter one will be important when we will have to address the energy targets, which you heard about in the previous session. The third benefit I would like to mention is the policy building opportunity that arises from being part of the strategy. European Commission is one of the key players in the governance of the strategy, and that means that it provides both strategic coordination as well as advice and guidance to other actors involved, meaning us. And it enables us to have a closer linkages between the European, worldwide, and macro-regional policies. So you heard, first of all, very importantly, about the benefits of the cooperation in various networks. And to conclude, I would like to say that it is also important that the strategy benefits from us as stakeholders as part of it. Both VASAB and HELCOM, who are the coordinators of the policy area spatial planning, are well-established networks that can, first of all, add the territorial dimension to the strategy. And secondly, these are well-established networks that can contribute with their knowledge. And these both combine support the implementation of the three objectives of the strategy, which are save the sea, connect the region, and increase prosperity. Thank you. Back to you, Rhona.
Thank you for that. I was sitting in on a debate at the European Maritime Day a couple of weeks ago, and the discussion turned to whether the North Sea needed a strategy in the same way that the Baltic Sea already had one. I think that there were arguments for and arguments against, but it's very clear that you think the Baltic Sea strategy benefits your particular area for the issues that you've just outlined. Any other words to the North Sea people? Would you recommend that they've pursued it?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, the cooperation in the Baltic Sea region has been very fruitful, and you will hear more about these platforms in a minute from my fellow speakers. So this is a way to understand each other better and to ensure the coherence, which is so important, and we will talk much about it later on in these days. So we are always open to give an advice to our fellow North Sea planners.
That's wonderful. I'm sure there will be many people seeking you out in that case. Thank you very much, Liene. That was a wonderful introduction to the Baltic Sea region and the work that your data group is doing. That's fantastic. Rüdiger Strempel, that's a very nice segue into the work of HELCOM. So would you like to be able to fill us in for about the next 5 minutes? HELCOM obviously has a long and involved and illustrious history. So if you are, and you're an executive secretary with them at the moment. So your question then is, how is the Baltic Sea Action Plan helpful for maritime spatial planning? And how can maritime spatial planning help contribute to good environmental status? Would you like to kick off?
Thank you very much, Rhona. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me. I'm very pleased to be with you today, albeit only briefly, because this is a very busy week for HELCOM, because we have our heads of delegations meeting at the end of this week, and it's a crucial time for HELCOM, as you know, because we're on the finishing stretch now, basically towards our Baltic Sea Action Plan and the ministerial meeting in October. So we have a very busy schedule, but I'm happy to be able to join you here today. And I'm also happy to try at least and answer that question, and I hope I'll do so to everybody's satisfaction. So the very quick answer to your question is there are lots of linkages between the two, and the two are actually mutually reinforcing, as we've seen in the past and as I think we'll be seeing in the future. As you know, the ultimate goal of the Baltic Sea Action Plan is to achieve good environmental status for the Baltic Sea. And it therefore addresses all sorts of human activities at sea, but also on land, that exert pressures on the marine environment. So marine spatial planning is actually a unique tool for integrated management of sea-based activities, and also takes into account the reduction of the environmental pressures exerted by those activities. And consequently, therefore, MSP contributes to achieving the goal of the BSAP, because of course, it contributes to mitigating human-environment conflicts. On the other hand, it also, of course, contributes to mitigating human conflicts that occur when it comes to the use of the marine environment. And of course, the goals of marine spatial planning extend beyond the protection of the marine environment. MSP also deals with issues related to the development of the marine economy through sustainable use of marine space and resources, and resolving conflicts between different users of the sea balancing their interests. So the MSP addresses all three facets of sustainable development. I think that's a very important factor to bear in mind. And it helps us to better understand the dynamics between the various sea-based activities, between the various actors engaging in these sea-based activities, and the various interests of the various stakeholders. This will be key, and is key, for the successful implementation of the BSAP. So you can see there's sort of a seesaw effect. The two are always interrelated. The Baltic Sea Action Plan identifies environmental goals for the Baltic Sea region, guided by the application of the ecosystem approach in MSP, for instance, by helping to identify areas of high nature value that are providing valuable ecosystem services to all of us. And this knowledge can then be used to steer sea-based activities away from areas where they can cause serious damage or disturbance to the environment, and also to provide a more holistic perspective to planners so that MSP decisions can be taken in the best informed manner possible. MSP is also based on a comprehensive, coherent, cross-border and forward-looking analysis of the use of marine space, which makes it so valuable to achieving our objectives at the regional Baltic Sea scale. The updated Baltic Sea Action Plan, as many of you will know, is due to be adopted in October of this year at the ministerial meeting, which will hopefully be held as a face-to-face meeting in Lübeck, Germany in October of this year. But even if it's not a face-to-face meeting, it will take place. And this is where the Baltic Sea Action Plan is going to be adopted. And it contains a new segment on horizontal actions that specifically includes actions on marine spatial planning. Because HELCOM, of course, recognizes that MSP is an essential instrument for achieving our ecological objectives, and it will therefore feature prominently in the updated Baltic Sea Action Plan. And specifically, that updated Baltic Sea Action Plan is expected to highlight the role of MSP for applying and implementing ecosystem-based management in order to support BSAP objectives and targets and to contribute to the sustainable use of the sea and to sustainable sea-based activities. Also related to the BSAP, but not part of the BSAP, HELCOM and VASAB are currently developing the Regional Marine Spatial Planning Roadmap 2021 to 2030, referred to in short as the Msp Roadmap. The goal of that roadmap, which is also due to be launched alongside the updated BSAP in October of this year, is to facilitate and keep track of the implementation of various national maritime spatial plans in the Baltic Sea, as well as to lay the groundwork for their review in order to develop plans that are more adaptive and provide the flexibility to accommodate future needs, because as we all know, adaptive management is one of the pillars of MSP. The new MSP Roadmap 2021-2030 is closely linked to the BSAP, but contributing to the BSAP is actually only one out of 5 of its objectives. So when it comes to MSP, the roadmap is a more comprehensive tool which strongly considers the implications of the ecosystem approach. I think I'll leave it at that for now. I hope that was sufficient to answer your question. And of course, I'm open to any additional and follow-on questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was beautifully done and wonderfully timed. And we may come back to some of the elements that you're referring to if we have time. But for the moment, I would like to turn to Johannesson and ask from SWAM, Swedish Agency for Water, Marine and Water Management. And Joachim, you've been involved with this for many years. I remember meeting you in various places around the Baltic Sea and North Europe and elsewhere as well. But in the context of drafting a new regional Baltic maritime spatial planning roadmap, as Rüdiger has just mentioned, to cover the period up to 2030, what are the most important changes that you've made to this new document? Perhaps you might like to follow on from the comments that he's just made about this new MSP section. What are the new areas that are being considered? The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. First, of course, I have to say thank you for inviting me. And it's really nice to be back because last time, 2 years ago, we had a wonderful and very fruitful meeting in Riga. Well, yes, I've been around for a long time. I've been the co-chair of the HELCOM-VASAB working group since 2016, so it's quite some time now. Well, first I need to say that we're still waiting for the approval of the roadmap. It's still under discussion, and as we heard from HELCOM and Rüdiger, there will be hopefully some thumbs up later this week, but we'll see. It has been discussed within VASAB. It was a very positive discussion. And as being a roadmap, a proposal from the HELCOM-VASAB working group. It also means it's not only a roadmap for HELCOM and the Baltic Action Plan, but it's also a roadmap for the long-term perspective of VASAB. So this is it's a joint work between two organizations. Well, the current roadmap aimed at supporting the countries to introduce MSP and develop coherent maritime special plans. The new focus is more on learning from the actual application of the maritime special plans that have been adopted or soon will be adopted, and to prepare for the future by developing knowledge, methods, and guidance to be used in common planning processes. Well, apart from the particular needs related to the planning process and the aim for coherent plans, the proposed roadmap has also been developed to meet new demands from the policy level and in relation to the use of the sea. And we heard about this development in the opening speeches, also in the previous policy debate. And of course, for the EU countries in particular, the Green Deal is a very strong driver for change. Well, to summarize, in particular, there are three trends or aspects that are important for the next decade. We expect a high increase of offshore wind installations. That's also part of the Green Deal and the Commission strategy on offshore wind. There is also a political declaration between the EU countries and the Commission to work for more electricity supplies from offshore wind. So there will be new installations. Also, there's an increase of protected areas and protecting measures. We have this 30% target you heard about before that has to be implemented in the next decade. And of course, we need to tackle the consequences of the climate change. That's also crucial. Well, going back to the offshore wind, well, to increase our capacity to deal with the high demand for space, we have to look into the spatial efficiency. And therefore, we propose to analyze and support spatial efficiency by comparing approaches and solutions with regard to spatial use, but also to conflict management. As we heard before, there are also some conflicts related to offshore wind installations being a kind of exploitation at sea. To effectively manage the high demand for use of sea, it's also important to develop a Baltic Sea region framework for strategic environmental assessments for MSP. Because we believe that the regional framework will improve compatibility of SCA practices and results between countries and in the region. And today we use the same legislation, but we do it in different ways. And there are many benefits of having a joint framework, particularly for MSP. As for the second aspect of trend, new and stricter protected areas, the roadmap also includes an action how MSP can support the new targets for marine protected areas. And there's also an action to evaluate the maritime special plans against the targets in the EU Marine Strategy Framework Directive. Then, of course, we have the climate change. We want to explore how MSP can contribute to climate change mitigation and nationally determined contribution in terms of the Paris Agreement. We also have included a specific action how MSP can contribute to conservation strategies to cater for special changes in the ecosystems. And apart from the actions related to the trends, there's also a need to follow up the application of the adopted maritime special plans, as I said in the beginning. And therefore, we suggest to develop a regional follow-up system on MSP, including monitoring implementation at the Baltic Sea level. BSR countries are already setting up follow-up systems at national level, but in addition, there's a clear need to follow up the plans at regional level as well. And this is important for further increase in the coherence and future of the planning. And finally, before I conclude, I would like to mention the proposal to possibly further develop the practical and technical cooperation between the Baltic Sea region and countries by possibly setting up a planners forum that was mentioned by Alda in one of the opening speeches earlier today, where planners or planning experts can meet to discuss concrete planning issues. And a similar forum has been in place since 2018, first within the Pan-Baltic School project, and now within the capacity for MSP projects. And in the Baltic Sea MSP framework, the forum could be an expert group or expert network linked to the HELCOM-VASAB working group. That's still to be discussed, of course. Well, I will stop here. There are lots of more things in the roadmap, of course, but I should focus on the novelties. And my time is running out, so I stop here. Thank you.
That's wonderfully timed. Thank you, Joachim. Fantastic, and so nice to hear new ideas that are being put forward, because it is an adaptive and an iterative process, and we are consistently learning from what has been proven to work well in a different environment in the past and what can be adapted to work well here. I like the idea of the Planners Forum. I can imagine that you will have some very good conversations, because it's always good when maritime spatial planners get together and discuss what they've been up to. So, moving on, in that case, from where we have been with the Baltic Sea region, the focus there at the moment, it's my great pleasure to introduce the last of our speakers in this panel, Ingela Isaksson, who on this occasion is representing the MSPglobal aspect of UNESCO. And you will see, Ingela, I hope, that I am wearing my SDG pin badge, my Sustainable Development Goals pin badge. Of course, they cover you as well. See, great minds think alike. The UN's Sustainable Development Goals obviously cover 17 different aspects of life on Earth, but SDG 14 deals explicitly with life underwater. We've heard an awful lot this morning already about how terrestrial and marine planning can be brought together across the land-sea interface. So would you be able to talk to us a little about how maritime spatial planning can help achieve some of the other UN Sustainable Development Goals, including the ones relating to land? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rhona. And first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here today, and hello to everyone. So yeah, the UN Sustainable Development Goals is our world's guidance to achieve a better and more sustainable future for everyone, leaving no one behind. They address the global challenges, as you said, Rhona, we face, including poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. So the 17 goals need to be considered as inseparable and therefore needed to be an integral part also of marine spatial planning. The IUC UNESCO is the United Nations body responsible for supporting global ocean science and services. IUC also leads the recently launched UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, a solution-oriented global collective framework to create the science we need for the ocean we want. So why is the ocean important for us living on land? Just some basics to bear in mind. Every second breath we take is produced in the ocean. The ocean makes its earth habitable. It influences weather and climate. The ocean has acted as a shock absorber, and the sea has absorbed more than 90% of the extra heat that our emissions have caused. The ocean has become acidified from the carbon dioxide we emit. At the same time, 3 billion people depend on the ocean for their livelihood, and people in poverty are the most vulnerable and when climate changes and the sea is depleted. That's why we need to take care and save the sea. Marine spatial planning has a role as a facilitator in a larger context of improved ocean governance for a healthier sea. So what is being done to encourage and inspire the marine spatial planning process worldwide? In 2017, IUC and the European Commission Director General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, DG Mare, adopted their joint roadmap to accelerate marine spatial planning process worldwide. The Sustainable Development Goals reflects and makes tangible the commitments of DG Mare and IUC UNESCO to support the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in a comprehensive, coherent, and holistic manner. This voluntary commitment at the 2017 UN Ocean Conference aims to triple the marine area benefiting from marine spatial planning effectively implemented by 2030. The implementation of MSPglobal as a part of the joint roadmap for MSP include the development of an international guidance on MSP, 2 transboundary pilot projects in the West Mediterranean and Southeast Pacific, inspired by the Baltic Sea region, as well as capacity building and community actions. The new international guidance on MSP will be launched in September this year and address emerged goals and objectives in a changing world, such as the increased demand of renewable energy mentioned earlier today, the Aichi biodiversity target also mentioned, and the growing need to consider additional themes as sustainable blue economy, transpounder MSP, climate change, gender and poverty perspective, all parts of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and therefore vital for laying the foundation for sustainable cities and communities with a responsible consumption and production, where the multi-level MSP decision-making process is prevalent. To assure a successful outcome depends on a strengthened participatory, transparent and effective governance. So there's the role of the MSP in all parts of the UN agenda. The social dimension of sustainability is linked to economic and ecological dimension through people's multiple dependence on ocean resources and space for food and livelihoods. Degradations of the seas has also serious consequences on coastal communities and human well-being. Building on social justice and equity perspective into MSP is necessary when designing every step of the process. Thank you. Over to you, Rhona.
Thank you for that comprehensive rundown. It's wonderful to see that there is tie-in from the European level to the global level between the European Union and UNESCO, and also that the experiences from different European sea basins, including the Baltic, are being put into operational activities for others to learn from in due course. That's good to know that such things are taking place, and congratulations on being part and parcel of it, and I'm sure you are a real driver behind the scenes. We are getting into the last 10-15 minutes of this session, and there's an element of interaction with the audience at this point. Edgars, we have some questions, I think, to be answered in the poll at this stage. Is that correct?
Yes, Rhona. We do have the poll question quite active, and I have to say that the activity has continued. At the moment, I will just refresh the results to see the latest of them. And let me remind you, to all of you, the question. So the poll question was, how can joint frameworks be supportive for your MSP work? And the good news is that none of the options, and this was a multiple choice question, none of the options has received less than 30% of the voices. And the least currently is serve as a platform for policy building. So this still has received around 30% of the voices, which is quite a lot, but is the least important in the opinion of our voters. But the most important at the moment, according to the votes now, is to promote transnational projects. So what do our panelists think about these results?
Indeed, and that rather nicely leads on to the next question that I was going to ask to the panelists. This question goes to all of you. If we can have maybe a minute or so from each of you just to reflect on this. But regarding the implementation of transnational frameworks, how do we create synergies among regional and local levels? And what does it take to translate them to different geographical scales? This reflects a question that I have seen come in on the comments session, or the comments aspect. If I can find my way back to it. Yes, Indra Levite asks, I'm wondering about the different types of regulations, policies and commitments that need to be juggled in the Baltic Sea between the national, EU and international level. How are priorities and targets set for the Baltic Sea, respecting or challenging different ambitions? So would anybody like to start on those areas? There's a few chunky little pieces that can be discussed. Perhaps Rüdiger, would you like to take the lead on that one, please? The different types of the regulations, and how do you respond to those points?
Well, thank you very much. And as a representative of a transnational or international framework, of course, I'm very pleased to see that these are highly regarded and considered to be of central importance. And I'd like to, first of all, maybe begin by answering the overall question that you asked at the outset. We realize that we're often asked by representatives of other regions, for instance, regional seas organizations, to share our recipe for success, because we're considered a pioneer and a role model, basically, on coordinated marine protection in MSP. And that, of course, is flattering, and there is some truth in that. And we're happy that this is the case, but nonetheless, I think improvement is always possible, and there's always room for improvement. And I think I'd like to share a few ideas on how we could further improve and further enhance our cooperation. So, in general, I think to achieve better synergistic effects, we should consider three things. One is that we need to enable an open and transparent regional dialogue to provide the adequate provide the adequate platforms to do so. And this MSP forum actually is a case in point. This is exactly the sort of thing that we need. It is one of many ways to enable this dialogue and to maintain the dialogue. And we need to be inclusive. That means we need to involve all stakeholders, ranging from academia to business and policy, from local to regional, to cover the entire spectrum of interests and to foster shared objectives, which we have and which sometimes we need to become aware of. And thirdly, we need to base our actions on the best available scientific knowledge. And as many of you will know, one of the things we're proud of at HELCOM is that our work is science-based. We don't take random decisions. Our work is science-based. We have a very strong scientific basis in the Baltic Sea, of course, and a very lively and very active scientific and research community. And that's one of the privileges we enjoy in this region. And so to bring this to success, we need to base our actions on the best available scientific knowledge, and improving ocean literacy among stakeholders will certainly go a long way towards doing that, especially at the local level, because this will enable us to basically speak the same language, even though we may not have exactly convergent interests always, but at least we speak the same language, and that creates a basis for dialogue and a basis for progress.
That's a wonderful positive point. Just to bring some of the others in that case, then on the ocean literacy and the engagement perspective, perhaps Liene, if you're there, would you like to be able to? Could you talk to us a little bit about the BSR approach to engaging stakeholders and developing the ocean literacy side of that work?
Yes, I could give a short insight. It's interesting that many of the keywords for discussion I've written down and to answer this question are very similar to those that Rüdiger just mentioned. So indeed, the transparency and the well-established dialogue will be of key importance in the future. But what I would like to emphasize and add a bit on is that now when we step into the phase of the implementation of the maritime spatial plans and blue growth strategies, it's very important to continue this dialogue and to continue working together. We've showed excellent results in a broad stakeholder involvement up till this phase, and now we have to continue working together also on the implementation. I think the Sustainable Development Goals is one of the excellent examples. Have a global agenda is most efficiently implemented on a local level, and that's the place where you see the tangible results.
That's a very nice segue into Ingela in that case, then back to the SDGs. And how do you find that you are able to take a global picture but break it down to elements of local specification or local interest when you're talking about what's important? Ingela, are you able to join us?
Yeah, I am.
Great.
Yeah, well, I would like to say that one very important part of the MSPglobal initiative has been capacity building, and to encourage and to inspire other countries as well to take on the road on working with the marine spatial planning. So what we've been doing these years since 2017 is we've been trying to connect continents, and here today I think it's there. We have lots of people listening in to the seminars who have been able to join early on as well in person. But I think we are able to listen into each other and learning from each other. And I think that has been the most important thing. And another thing that we've been working with in regard to including the local level is that we have been working with storytelling tools to facilitate the dissemination and the user-friendly spatial analysis inputs. And those have been accessible in different languages. So if we're working with the Arabic countries, we're working in Arabic. Well, I don't, but others do. And also the multilinguistic is also important, even though, as you said, Rüdiger, they're speaking the same language, could be not speaking the same language, but speaking the MSP language, but in different dialects or different languages is also important, because that's a way to involve also the different analysis levels. So it's important to zoom out and zoom in and get inspiration from each other. And the Baltic Sea region is really a forerunner, and it's so nice to always talk about the work that's been done and the experiences that we can share from the Baltic Sea region.
Indeed, and there is a considerable amount of experience to share. So with that point, Joacim, if you'd like to bring this particular little discussion to a conclusion, you've got a nice, bright, shiny new MSP roadmap ahead. Is there a place for storytelling in your roadmap up until 2030? How are you going to include? How are you going to include the great traditions?
I assume there will be storytelling as well. It's a 9-year roadmap, and there will be a lot of things happening. And I totally agree with the previous speakers. All levels are as equally important. We are all needed. I mean, at local level, you are actually doing the things. There you have the action in the sea. And at this more, how I say, policy level, at the Baltic Sea region level, we are also doing things together to support the countries and support also indirectly the local level. Actually, I recently had a question from someone interviewing me how the results from the HELCOM-VASAB working group reached the municipalities in Sweden, if they actually used the results. And of course, the answer is, well, not directly. It's a little bit far away looking at the scale. But as HELCOM-VASAB is crucial for the administrations from the Baltic Sea and MSP, everything that's done there somehow is trickling down to the local level in the end. So there is definitely a connection, I would say.
I think that's a very important point, that everything comes down to the local level in the end, because that's the point at which humans directly interact with issues of any shape or scale. It's from our own individual point of view, and it's where we stand generally on the land, but looking out to sea. So it's good to be able to focus things in. And of course, everybody takes a variety of different views. There are some of us that we've heard from the policy debate this morning who are taking a pan-European or upwards into the global echelons view about everything, but ultimately it does come down to your own particular experiences and what is important to you. So my thanks to all the contributions to this panel discussion this morning. Thank you to the audience who have contributed to the polls and for the questions that I've finally been able to see. It's lovely to know that you're out there and that you are contributing and listening to what has been said. We've covered quite a lot of ground, but it's wonderful to know that the examples that are coming through from the Baltic Sea region, both in terms of your existing mechanisms and frameworks, which have a long history, but also how these are being updated and made fit for purpose for the challenges of the next decade, both at the European level, at the Baltic level, and also contributing to what the UN is seeking in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. You are all contributing to a wonderful picture, building up the tapestry of all the different elements that are connected with this. And it's been a privilege to work with you this morning. I will be back again tomorrow to bring together to moderate some of the other sessions, including the workshops, the reporting workshop sessions. But I think you are going off to have a break at this point, Edgars. Would you like to come back? And we will meet again virtually over the screen from my side of things for a moderation tomorrow, but I'm sure you're going to be working very hard for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.